Hello, my Barbie girls. I just got back from watching the Barbie movie and I absolutely loved it. This was the first movie in a while I actually went to the theaters for because the hype and marketing around it was just crazy. They really did such a great job with the advertising for this movie. Even if it was awful, I still wouldn't have regretted seeing it because they really made you feel like you had to. And of course, the songs from the soundtrack becoming hits. This was the first time in a long time I felt like a movie was an event, and I appreciate it for that. I love an event movie. As for the film itself, I thought it was honestly really good. It delivered exactly what I wanted. Before I get into spoilers, let me just say if you're a parent, I don't know if I would bring my child to this. I think probably everyone knows that. I'm only saying that because the theater I went to was filled with parents and kids, and I'm not really sure the little kids understood what the movie was about. I feel like if your child is 10 and under, I wouldn't bring them to see this, but if they're almost a teenager or a teenager, then yeah, sure. It's not like the movie is totally adult or inappropriate. I think it's fine for a kid to watch it, but I don't think they'd really appreciate it or get it. It's rated PG-13 for a reason. With that being said, though, I didn't think it was trying too hard to be shocking or adult. I feel like with parody movies like this, or movies that disguise themselves as being kid friendly when they're really not, they often lean too far into being overly edgy, and that ends up being the whole joke. This movie was smart. The joke wasn't just that it was simply a Barbie movie for adults. There's definitely parts like that, but it's never distracting. It never took me out of it. Alright, now I am going to discuss the movie, so if you don't want it spoiled, leave now. The movie was about a Barbie, played by Margot Robbie, who is starting to get existential. She basically has lived the same day every day for presumably her whole life. She gets up, she says hi to the other Barbies, goes to the beach, parties in her dream house at night, rinse and repeat. And then all of a sudden, she's having dark thoughts and things start going wrong for her. Her feet become flat instead of perfectly molded to fit into heels, and she seeks out help to figure out how to get back to normal. And it turns out she has to go to the real world to find her owner, the girl that plays with her. Because what I gathered from the explanation they gave was that the dolls take on the emotions and feelings of who's playing with them. So since Margot Robbie is feeling all depressed, her owner must also be feeling depressed. So she has to go to the real world and remind her of the magic of Barbie or whatever. It doesn't really matter. What matters is Barbie's going to the real world. So her and Ryan Gosling as Ken, who tags along without Barbie wanting him to go, they go into the real world of Venice Beach and obviously experience some culture shock. There's some funny moments with that. And Ken discovers the real world is run by men. He loves this since he comes from a Barbie world where women are in charge, and he decides to go back and basically make Barbie Land into his own kingdom. Meanwhile, Barbie finds the mother and daughter duo that she belongs to. The mother loves Barbie. She even works for Mattel, and she's been missing the days when her and her daughter used to play together. So she's been taking out her frustrations of life into her drawings, and she's been playing with the Margot Robbie doll in secret, which explains why things have gone bad for her. The daughter is totally anti-Barbie, but over the course of their adventure, she realizes how important she is to her mother and wants to save Barbie Land from being overrun by the Kens. It's hard to do a plot summary with a straight face because this movie is so ridiculous, but it obviously understands that. Barbie is an extremely meta kind of film. It's clearly poking fun of the idea of Barbie. I knew from the beginning I was in for a good time when it started with a 2001 A Space Odyssey reference, with the narrator literally saying, ever since there's been little girls, there's been baby dolls, but once Barbie came along, like the monolith, everything changed. That was hilarious. Suddenly there was Barbie Land filled with Doctor and President and Nurse Barbies, for every little girl to be inspired by. And within the bubble of Barbie world, all the dolls believed they were the answer to every feminist issue that's ever existed. They basically never even had feminist issues in Barbie Land. They did a good job with the world building. They gave that little backstory. It maybe took 2-3 minutes, and then presented what Barbie Land was like, complete with the dream house and the iconic pink cars, and ran through what a day in stereotypical Barbie's life was like. Stereotypical Barbie literally being the name of Margot Robbie's character. I have to say, above everything else, this movie's set design was extraordinary. I felt fully immersed in Barbie Land. It was so convincing as a full-scale version of what a toy would live in. There were a lot of cute visual gags, like when Margot Robbie went down her water slide, but the pool was just solid ground with a sticker of water on it. Everything looked like it was just a cheap plastic toy that you played with as a kid, and it all worked. Like I said, it just looked so impressive. The hot pinks and the perfectly blue sky and the vibrancy of it all just made me feel like a Barbie girl in the Barbie world. I loved how everything functioned like how a doll set would. And again, it was fun to see the visual gags that came from that. I think the fact that they took their time in the Barbie world made it that much better when they left and they were on Venice Beach, and suddenly everything just seemed way more dreary and washed out. But here you have these two flamboyantly dressed life-size toys walking around. The contrast was hilarious. I also have to say, I appreciate how the movie didn't spend way too long in either the Barbie or the real world. I feel like there was an equal balance of both, which I was happy about because I wanted to be in Barbie Land for a while, just to take in the sets and how over the top and girly it was. If I was a kid and I was walking through the sets for this movie, I would have been in heaven. Who am I kidding? I'd be in heaven now. Like, I want to visit these sets. It'd be cool if they maybe moved them to like Universal or a theme park somewhere and made a whole Barbie experience out of it. I would definitely be there. Anyway, yeah, I loved how it didn't focus too long on the whole fish out of water aspect of Barbie being in the real world. I was worried they'd maybe go with that for too long, but outside of the first few minutes when they're getting adjusted to how things work, they didn't go for the easy jokes. They acknowledged how ridiculous things were and moved on pretty quickly. I loved that. It helps that the real world itself in this movie was also eccentric. Obviously not as crazy as Barbie Land, but the Mattel headquarters and the executive board there was portrayed as this overly sterile, banal environment. The cubicles were literally squares, like boxed-in squares. I thought that was kind of funny. Despite being in this really sterile environment, the Mattel executive board weren't really the villains, which I also liked. It would have been easy to say the big corporation was the bad guy, and Will Ferrell as the CEO was the villain trying to get Barbie back to the Barbie world. He was trying to do that, but that was more of the B-plot. I think that was a funny way to get in some more commentary about how Barbie is meant to be this role model for girls who shows that you could do anything, but the company that she's from is almost entirely run by men. But again, it's not like they were really the villains. Ken was the main villain. The Mattel guys were just there since they're the ones who make the Barbies, and they get to make the decision of what types of Barbies will be made, and consequently what Barbie Land will be like. I liked that, and they were a funny contrast to the rest of the cast, since they were all in like black business suits and had this serious look to them, but really they were these totally incompetent guys who couldn't even catch Barbie when she was running away. I think the only thing I wasn't the hugest fan of in this movie was the relationship between the mother and the daughter. I'm not totally sure their collective character arc really came together in a satisfying way. I just feel like the daughter hated Barbie, went on a whole rant about her, made her cry, and then not too long after being in Barbie Land with her mother and seeing the Ken crisis, she suddenly sees the importance of Barbie and becomes way less jaded. Meanwhile, the mother has her own story of being kind of depressed and the pressures of being a woman, and she eventually inspires the Barbies to take back their land using her feminism teachings, I guess. My only issue was, I didn't think the mother and daughter had enough time to really develop their relationship. And that's a catch-22 because I don't think that they needed to, since this was primarily about Barbie and Ken, but they ended up being kind of hollow characters as a result, the mother and the daughter. The thing is, I didn't really want more of them, but I feel like they were here and they existed simply to do their roles and get the plot moving. I truthfully think the daughter could have been mostly cut and it would have been fine. I don't think she should have been cut completely, but I just don't feel like she added anything substantial to the journey they all went on. She helped out, but it was the mother who had the big girl power moment, and I guess it was nice for her daughter to see that, but I feel like they could have had a scene at the end of the movie of the mother going back to the daughter and using what she learned from her adventure to reconnect with her or something. And I'm talking like a not even minute-long scene, just a quick wrap-up showing things were gonna get better for them. Because again, their story didn't really matter. Their relationship wasn't what this movie was about. And I think the mother served a purpose on the journey itself, but the daughter, I just didn't think needed to be there. Anything substantial about their relationship could have been wrapped up in a minute. The daughter didn't need to go on the journey with the mother. I feel like the mother could have made the decision to go back to Barbie Land and save it on her own. She could have come to the realization her daughter spelled out for her by herself, and it would have had the same impact. I feel like, of course, there was going to be a kid character, and it was funny seeing a little girl just reading Barbie to filth and explaining pretty much what the younger generation's opinions on Barbie are, but I don't know that she needed to be here is all. I also think maybe some of the dialogue was a little ham-fisted. Like, they kind of pointed out some of the ridiculousness of them being toys and how things were in their world, when I thought they could have just let the jokes speak for themselves. But that didn't happen too often. I don't think that was a major problem at all. But then some of the dialogue about what Barbie represents and the societal issues and questions that come along with it, again, I feel like they kind of spelled out a lot of that instead of just letting it speak for itself. What I mean is, like, it seems like the rant the daughter goes on against Barbie is essentially this whole speech about why Barbie doesn't hold up in modern times. And it's funny, but I feel like that point could have gotten across without needing to state it so blatantly. There were a few times I thought that the dialogue could have been a little less overt with its message, but again, it wasn't wickedly distracting. Now, the best part of the movie was absolutely Margot and Ryan. They were literally life-size dolls, not just because they're obviously gorgeous, but the ways that they moved, their facial expressions. Margot has this wide-eyed grin, and Ryan, you could tell, was trying so hard to be this perfect doll that could get Barbie's attention. It was all super well done. They did a phenomenal job. I especially love the scene of Margot basically admitting defeat, and then she sits down, legs all perfectly straight, and stretches out her limbs and just flops over sadly like a doll you're trying to get to sit up. She plays the part so well. And Ryan Gosling as Ken is incredible. You can really sense the frustration he has with just being the boyfriend and the arrogance he gets when he takes over. They both play the part straight, and they're exactly how you'd imagine these two dolls being in real life. They were just absolutely astonishing. I could not look away from Margot for most of the movie. When she was on screen, like, I was just looking at her. She just looks radiant. All of her costumes looked amazing. Again, like I said, just a life-size doll. They did such a great job with selling that Barbie fantasy. Overall, the movie was fantastic. I'd give it like a 9 out of 10. It was 2 hours long, but it did not feel like it. It had a good pace, and it didn't slow down if it didn't need to. I don't feel like any of it was drawn out at all, which for a 2-hour Barbie movie is impressive. I give this my recommendation. If you haven't been to the theaters, consider seeing this one. Maybe do the Barbenheimer. I saw someone in a Barbenheimer shirt and was like, wow, that is going to be a relic of 2023 one day. Yeah, but definitely go see it if you're interested. I enjoyed the hell out of it. And now I'm going to listen to Speed Drive by Charlie XCX, so I'll see you guys next time.